6 o'clock on March 17th, and this is Fox News. This evening, we take you inside the action as Working Group 3 hammers out the details of enforcement mechanisms. Now, critics suggest that the initial failure of the protocol was due to its lack of enforcement mechanisms. What sort of insights will this group bring to the table, and are they capable of rising to the challenge? You'll find out here with our reporter in the field, Todd Johnson. Hi, I'm Todd Johnson. It is Tuesday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, and we're about to go inside the room of Working Group 3 while they work on limits and enforcement mechanisms. The big question everyone is asking is who will be affected by the limits? How will the World Trade Organization respond to such limitations? Will there be amendments made to who's included in Annex 1, 2, and non-Annex countries? For instance, in the room we know that Japan, Ireland, Switzerland, and Turkey are currently the Annex 1 countries. Will the countries ever reach any form of consensus on who should be involved in the Annex 1 countries? Once again, I'm Todd Johnson reporting to you live from inside the room of Working Group 3. Let's get in there and see what we can hammer out. The first proposal, brought forth by India, set initial conflict between them and Bangladesh. India initially proposed that all countries, regardless of their annex or non-annex stature, would be subject to the same baseline emissions year of 2015. Todd Johnson here with India, who has just proposed an amendment to the Kyoto Protocol. He is suggesting that all countries should be held to the same standard. What does your amendment entail?
The amendment we entail speaks to changing the baseline year from 1990 to 2015. The reason we believe that is relevant, especially for holding all nations to the same standard, is that we believe it will make the entire agreement more legitimate. And we believe that ensuring an equitable platform so that every nation is held to the same standards will allow us to really push forward and hopefully form, the single best document that we're able to come up with.
As an American patriot, I totally agree with India. However, my journalistic integrity requires that I delve a little bit further for a fair and balanced debate.
The recent amendment is particularly important to Japan. As of 2009, with the enormous global economic meltdown, we haven't been able to stabilize our own economy, much less our ability to lower emissions rates.
The only Annex 1 country that would be affected in this working group would be Japan, with leaving the levels at 1990 rather than bringing it up to 2015. I understand Japan's desire to have them be uniform, which was proposed by India, but because I am not as necessarily convinced of it, because my main focus is the development of Asia and the Pacific.
The amendment was initially stricken down due to a lack of consensus and replaced by another proposal from the honorable representative from Bangladesh. Her suggestion was immediately taken up by a round of applause and full consensus. So essentially, for Annex 1 countries, the baseline year will still be 1990, and for non-annexed countries, the baseline will be moved up to 2015. Essentially, this is supposed to create more equity, but does it?
Initially, Bangladesh was a little concerned about its relationship with India. Obviously, there are conflicting interests between the two countries. But in the end, it ended up seeming appropriate that Bangladesh agree to 2015 levels being accommodated for Annex 2 countries, as they are developing and are doing significant work in eradicating poverty. So Bangladesh respects that as a nation who also is dealing with a lot of poverty, and so those levels seemed appropriate.
The working groups immediately broke off into informal discussion to sort out what's arguably the COP's most notorious exercise in futility: commitment periods. Once again, the honorable delegate from Bangladesh tabled a well-mannered proposal that became immediately passed, thus ending this day of formal deliberation. Here's what the delegate had to say on the matter. So one question about the commitment period: how does that directly affect countries that are climate sensitive?
Well, as a climate-sensitive country, we are looking to create national adaptation plans, as we are already dealing with lots of significant climate events that have impacted our people and our agricultural as well as our economic activities. So having a longer commitment period rather than the 4 years that was committed to initially from 2008 to 2012, now from 2035 to 2025 to 2035 provides us a 10-year period where we can really plan on adapting our infrastructure and creating better plans that are based on those emissions from the Annex 1 and Annex 2 countries.
A follow-up question to that. You have voted for a 10-year ratification period. What does that specifically provide countries with?
So a 10-year ratification period is going to provide countries such as the U.S. And China, who are larger emitters right now, with a longer period where they can reduce their emissions and invest in cleaner technologies. So bringing their levels down for 2025 so that it's not going to inhibit their economic activities as well as the other activities occurring within the country.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
You heard it from Fox first. This is Todd Johnson signing off. Back to you, Chip. Thanks, Todd. That ends our segment for today. And, as usual, I would like to thank the delegates for their participation and remind them that our future is in your hands. Our children, their safety. So as you go into this Paris Cup, remember, the world is watching. More. Todd Johnson. Limits and enforcement. Working Group 3.